Welcome back to the Stockwell Eldridge Show. I'm Jason Stockwell with Remax Results.
Don Eldridge, Remax Results.
And we have in studio with us
Stephanie Havel, Wells Fargo Home Mortgage.
Chelsea with the Jason Stockwell team.
and our special guest.
Yeah, Dr. Jay Piatola from Piatola Chiropractic.
And I have a quick question before we get into the soccer thing, the Italian soccer team. What got you started in your practice?
So I was an athlete in college and hurt my back real bad and started going to a chiropractor, and I got a lot of benefit out of it. So I decided real early on that's what I wanted to do. So I just followed that career all the way through until I became a chiropractor. One of the things I noticed in chiropractic, I thought was kind of strange. Some people got hurt, some people were always hurt, and some people never got hurt. And I just knew there had to be something behind that, a reason why. And kind of that same logic, even when I got into chiropractic school, I could see that sometimes people would get adjusted. It was like a miracle. They were immediately better. And other times people got the same adjustment with the same problem, and they weren't responding. So I knew there was something behind it that we just didn't know yet. And I was always searching for that answer. What's that thing that's missing? You know, what don't we know about what this adjustment's doing or about what our therapy's doing? And that's really what I found neurology was for me.
And it's the brain more than just the action of the adjustment.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
It gave me that answer, and it allowed me to fine-tune and hone and actually develop this technique. Neurotarget system is the technique that I do. And then just to segue from what we're talking about, the Neurotarget system is something that I actually teach other people how to do. So I was invited to Amsterdam to teach a lecture on injury prevention, and I was teaching it, and one of the attendees was a head doctor from Fiorentina, which is a professional soccer team in Florence, Italy. And pretty much after that lecture was over, he came right up to me and he was like, "This is something that I believe in, and I want you to come work for our team." So I laughingly said, "Hey, give me an offer, whatever, move to Italy." Like
I'll
nobody
make you an
does
offer
that.
you can't refuse. Right? Is that what he said?
Pretty much. He was doing this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that meant I was going to die or... Anyways,
It can mean
let me
many
talk
things.
to my godfather, okay?
It could mean I'm hungry. It could mean no, I'm just kidding.
so
Check out YouTube if you want to see what they're talking
We've got
about
all
right
kinds
now.
of symbols we won't go into.
the offer was in my email, and it was awesome. So me and my wife took it. We moved to Italy. I lived there for 2 years and worked with the team for injury prevention and just some of the results. They tracked all their injuries meticulously, what kind, how long the recovery was. And their injury rate when we got there was 26 injuries per 1,000 hours of training. And after the first 6 months, which was the trial period, their injury rate dropped to 4 injuries per 1,000 hours.
Wow.
So basically, they were keeping every player on the field for every game, and they were playing awesome. They were in the Champions League, and everybody was super happy. And in fact, the team actually got investigated for using illegal methods because their injury rate was so low, and they were just like, well, it's just our chiropractor. And in Italy, they don't even have chiropractic.
Right.
So the
I was
guys were
going to
like,
say
They
their
don't?
healthcare
Really?
Oh my gosh, the healthcare system.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't
That's
know
another
that.
show.
Oh.
So that job actually continued for another 4 or 5 years, and I was traveling back and forth a lot. And then eventually that led to the national soccer team gave me a call and asked if I could come and work with them on their technical staff as in injury prevention and performance enhancement. So I said, yeah, why not? And I went to the World Cup. That was the trial period. And, it was really the players were saying this is the first time I've ever come to the national team and felt better going back to my team than usually they feel worse because they don't really care about treating the players. They just use them, and if they're injured, they send them back to their regular team for treatment. So, but this is the first time they were saying they actually felt better at the end of the season than at the beginning. So then that was a huge success, and so they invited me back for the World Cup, and so I went to Brazil with them. And
So the main message here is don't do drugs.
That's right. Stay
Get
in
a
school.
functional neurologist, right? Is that
right.
what I'm picking up on?
Yeah, and what's nice about the functional neurology, if I do an exam and I'm finding something that's just not making sense or it's a lesion, I know how to make a referral, and we can refer you out for a surgical consult or whatever kind of therapy or test we may need to figure out exactly what the problem is.
So am I understanding it right, though, Dr. J, when you're saying, like what you did with the soccer team. So is it things you figure out the way that they are, is it the way that they're moving, or what is it when you're treating them, like the way they're sleeping or the way they're moving? Like what are some of the preventative measures that you can take to that helped them reduce their injuries. I guess
And how
maybe
do
that
you
was my
connect
question.
it?
Is what were some of the things that they were doing that you helped them change to go from that whatever it was 17% down to 4%?
26 injuries
26
to 4.
to 4. Yeah.
So that's a great question. And actually, my NeuroTarget system, the philosophy about that really revolves around force absorption. So when you do an activity, whether it's sitting in a chair, running, jumping, falling, hitting, all those activities cause force to enter into your body. Now, it's your muscles' job to absorb that force, and that's how our muscles protect our body. Anytime force enters your body that your muscle is unable to absorb, it's going to transfer away from the muscle to places where it doesn't belong, like a tendon, a ligament, a disc in your back, and that's when those structures become injured. So when I see injuries, I don't say, oh, what did you hurt? I say, why can't you absorb force properly? Right? That's what I say. Now, when I ask people that,
I punch you in the nose.
yeah, and that's force coming in. If you can't absorb it, you're going to break your nose. But I mean, it's really that simple. Everything is force, coming into your body. So
even a lower back pain,
it's force
which I've had a lot in my life.
That's just force going into your low back. It's going into a disc.
Did we talk about this with backs
Like,
or
is that from when I
knees
sleep? I'm sleeping improperly and the force is wrong on my back?
Something like that. So when people think about absorbing force, they think about how strong they are. And I'm really adamant that that's really not the problem. If you got hurt because you weren't strong enough, that must mean that you have more force entering your body than your strength could absorb. So like a car accident, it's a good example of an excessive force trauma, getting shot, by a bullet, or falling off the roof of your house. And most people like yourself, I'm sure that didn't happen to you. So we can't really look at strength as fixing the problem of force absorption. And that's a lot of times why physical therapy fails, because they're focusing on strengthening, but it's not that. And really what it is timing. And if you think about force comes into your body, it's going to stimulate joint receptors in your knees and in your ankles and your hips and your back. Those joint receptors send signals into your brain. Your brain processes those signals and responds by turning on whatever muscles are necessary to absorb that force.
Yes.
This is a reflex loop that's constantly firing, and it's really important, and it's very efficient as well. Your brain has to process those signals, though, and if one part of your brain is functioning at a slower frequency than another part, it still has to process the same signals, but it takes a minute amount of time, a little bit longer than the other areas, and that causes a slight delay when those signals come down. So if force is entering into your body and that muscle doesn't turn on exactly at that moment, it can easily bypass right into another area.
So I have a question on that. So that makes sense, too, because to me, it seems like, that's natural. Your body is built with a natural system.
It automatically turns on, right?
Yeah, but that's little millisecond or whatever it is delay can cause an effect where you get a tweak, or where instead of going to the muscle, like you said, it goes to a joint or to a hip bone or something like that. So the question I have on that is, what's wrong in the neurological phase, or what's wrong in the brain that's not triggering? You said it's too much potassium and sodium. That's
part of the issue, but it's really it's the frequency of firing of that area. So there's groups of neurons, and it could be the number of connections where there's not enough connections, for example, or it could be the sodium potassium thing and the wall is degenerating. And there's lots of reasons why. Maybe it's actually being inhibited by another area. That could happen too, and it would slow down. So the main idea is we actually do this protocol. It's a muscle testing protocol. We go through your whole body. We test a whole bunch of muscles, but we're not testing them to see how strong they are. We test them to see how fast they turn on. And I'm sure Don can attest to this. If a muscle's not turning on, when I push on it, you can feel it. It's just it doesn't react the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And we can trace that muscle back up through the nervous system to find out where that delay is coming from. So once I figure that out, it's a matter of doing whatever adjustment or therapy is necessary to activate the brain in a way to change its function. Once it changes, those signals come down super fast, the muscle turns on at the right time, and it starts absorbing force. And that force coming in, it doesn't matter if it's an ounce or a pound or 100 pounds. When it enters that area, if it's not absorbed, it's going to go somewhere else.
How common is your practice? I mean, I just think driving around the orthopedics, I know you've talked about your back. I've got bad knees, and the orthopedics are popping up like crazy. And so obviously it sounds like what you're doing is what you do or your practice common like in the Twin Cities or in the Midwest or?
Well, the only people that I've found that actually do what I do are people that I've trained. So there's not that many. And I think it's just because, for one, chiropractic neurology is a very rare thing to do. I was the first certified chiropractic neurologist in Minnesota.
Okay,
I think
wow.
there's maybe 14 or 15 of us now, and there's 1,000 or more
And you've trained all
chiropractors.
15 of them?
No. They're trained in neurology classically.
Okay.
But what's different a little bit about what I do is I actually do this muscle testing protocol, which is known as applied kinesiology. So combining those two things are really.
I've
the
never
thing
heard of that.
sets me apart.
I've seen a lot of regular, or heard of a lot of regular, what you call regular
chiropractors.
But they're not actually going in and trying to figure out the brain. They're just saying, okay, let's
Yeah.
adjust here, let's do that.
And their adjustments are affecting the brain, but it's random when you think about it neurologically, what they're trying to do, because they're not thinking about it. They're thinking about it structurally.
I got what you're saying. Okay. Well, and it's all beneficial in one way or another to you health-wise to go get yourself checked out, especially if you have had a traumatic injury or even if you haven't, because I have a question for Dr. J when we get back about age. Does age affect this? Because I'm thinking as I get older, I seem to react slower. But anyway, we'll be back. I'm Jason Stockwell.
You're not alone.
I'm Jason Stockwell with Remax Results.
Don Eldridge, Remax Results.
This is the Stockwell Eldritch Show. We'll be back soon.
Just go ahead now.